Hello friends, it's the noobifier. Kyle and I once again had an opportunity to do what we love. We just returned from a week in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and it's important to mention that this is not a review of the Qubic QS S25. I have a link up for that right now if that's what you want, and it's also linked up at the end. Think of this video more like a story. What you're about to see actually began months ago with an email from the customer who saw something that they thought would be really cool and reached out. The customer will simply be known as J, like the letter, to preserve their privacy. We begin by understanding the goals, which lets us choose the right platform, the accessories, the hardware that works for the desired end state. Jay ended up really challenging me because Jay already knew exactly what the platform can do, but even more challenging was that Jay wanted the platform to be able to deliver as much of everything as possible. This meant not only circuit racing but rally and drift, and that meant not only jets but jet fighters. He also wanted to fly helicopters. He liked the simplicity of 55, but also correctly wanted to be able to capitalize on the improved immersion that VR has to offer. I needed to consider how to achieve all of these things for him on one system, but also in such a way to make it quick to change over. We all know that if it takes more than 5 minutes to change something out, we're likely not to do that. So hopefully throughout the video, I will demonstrate for you that we achieved this for Jay, or at least tried to get a solid starting point for him to refine the setup the way he wanted in the future. The simulator was ordered, the simulation gear was ordered, a Sparko seat was ordered, we discussed a PC, and it was decided that I would build it for them on site. The soundbar, the hue lighting, all of that was ordered. We also discussed the location in great detail to verify suitability to account for the power and the system weight. Day after day, this plan became more refined and even more adjusted to account for new features that Jay needed to apply to the final install. Based on the reporting delivery schedule, we selected an install window the week before Thanksgiving in the United States. Flights, rentals, and hotels were booked. I did a bunch of custom prototyping and fabrication in-house for the quick change mounts. Most of that was simply packed in 2 check bags, totaling just shy of 100 pounds, which was the limit. 3:30 a.m. on the 12th of November, we arrived at the airport in Ottawa. Normally you'd expect things to go smoothly, but have you ever seen that one person, that one effing guy or gal who isn't in charge but acts or feels like they are? The one who is willing to inject themselves into any situation that is working efficiently and start to F it all up. Just as we're about to make it to the next stage, that person arrives and everything begins to fall apart. This person injected panic and confusion where there was none and then left. Like a toddler. He would tell people the wrong information and waste their time and then leave. Luckily, and despite all of his personal attempts to completely derail our morning, we made it onto the plane with only 3 minutes to spare. We left Ottawa on our way to Chicago, a quick transfer and our next leg. We landed in Tulsa with 0 further complications because the layout of this airport is super intuitive. We got our bags, we got our small rental, and we drove around to recce the area on Tulsa. We got our hotel and chilled out that night to be ready for the next day. There aren't many 6DOF systems like this one on the market. The design is called a Stewart platform with 3 sets of paired actuators. Qubic Systems actually makes a relatively low-cost, compact design with high performance. It has great fidelity and, more importantly, the appropriate feeling that it can convey. As I said, Jay really challenged me, but in a good way. With Jay wanting that ease and spectacle of a massive triple 55 OLED array, and this was mainly possible because of a custom triple stand from Monster Tech. He also wanted to be able to exploit the benefits of Index VR and having a pre-order for Big Screen Beyond, a new ultra-small OLED VR headset. He had a standard set of wheelbases, pedals, shifters, handbrake, and this would also include left side WinWing Orion 2 F16 throttle, left side CM3 throttle, left side Virpil Collective. In the middle, there was a CM3 gimbal for flight and a second CM3 configured as a dead stick for helicopters. On the right side, a third CM3 gimbal and a mount for HOTAS flight. Each gimbal would have the correct grip and extension attached and ready. Cam and spring choices were dialed in for each, but most important would be that once the bindings are done, they would persist when changing from plane to plane in DCS. Again, super easy once configured. Monday, we arrived on site just before 8 a.m. We introduced ourselves and became familiar with the job site. The simulator was due that day, but a little bit more on that later. A quick scan of the parts and the area, and then we set to work. With permission, Jay allowed us to use the dining room table, and it was actually a great thing that we decided to add a 5th day for the install. Jay had asked us to set up his track racer motion platform with seat shaker and traction loss kit. This would take us well into lunch, and it assembles as 3 units, front, rear, and the power module. The assembled track racer sim sits on traction loss. After looking at it and later using it, both Kyle and I were quite impressed. We actually think it would work great as a main or a second system and provide a lot of fun motion sim experience. At that time, I left for Home Depot to get some parts and Kyle continued to work on the track racer system. He added Moza R21, the top spec CPR pedals, RSV2 round wheel, gated shifter, and a handbrake. Setting all of this cable management down the right side, Kyle took the entire time that I was out. I returned with a pair of floor dollies to easily move the track racer system around and a new PC case for the PC because Amazon had an interesting sense of humor in Tulsa. All of the PC parts were drop shipped using Amazon, and Jay must have added to cart a refurbished D5000 case instead of a new one. Amazon decided to ship a totally trashed Corsair 5000D with fur in the filters, big dents all over the metal, missing hardware, missing fans, missing fan controller, and this is why I sourced a new case for them on Monday. In this PC is top spec AMD 7950X, a 7900 XTX, 64 gigs of DDR, 2 Sabrent NVMe's, a 1K power supply, a 360mm all-in-one, and Windows 11. This PC would sit on a shelf at the rear of the stand below the 3 Sony 55s, and it would run triple 4K at 120. The third box for Monster Tech shipment arrived at 4 p.m. that day. We would set to work assembling the triple stand. There was a slight oversight that we could fix, but now we actually needed a machine shop. Luckily for me, the starcitizen org that I'm a member of, Enemy Contact, has been around for quite some time, and many of its members I've actually known for over 8 years. 4 of the original EC members actually live in Tulsa. The Laminal is one of them. I knew he had a Monster Tech setup for starcitizen, so I knew I could easily explain what I needed to him over the phone, and I figured that based on what he does in his professional life that he would know someone with a drill press. We had a plan, and Lam had a friend with a workshop. We cleaned up the install area, we told Jay that we'd be back the next day, and we left at 6:30. We arrived to visit the Laminal, and of course his house smelled great because it's around supper time. We're hungry and his wife invited us to stay for supper. Sadly, we were in such a time crunch that we actually needed to decline. So we're quickly back on the road to go to the shop to meet Mike, a fellow veteran, retiree, car nut, and gun enthusiast. Exactly the kind of person I needed to get this job done. In the darkness, at the end of a long driveway, is a dream garage. 4 double long bays, super high ceiling with lots of light, and super important, the drill press. We mock up some blocks to serve as a guide, and with a fresh can of PB Blaster, we make all of the needed additions to the profile. Now it's approaching 10 p.m. day 1. The worst thing I can do at this point is simply say, thanks and bugger off. Southern hospitality lives up to its reputation. Sadly, if we talk too long, it's going to be 3 or 4 in the morning. So, hotel by 12, shower, bed, and up for 6:30. Breakfast, a quick stop at Home Depot for bolts, and we're back to the house for day 2. The triple stand is set up, and the PC would help to keep me busy until the simulator was delivered. Originally, the entire system was going to sit in a corner, facing out on an angle. Once the stand took shape, it became very clear that sitting symmetrically with the window was actually the answer, and it would look totally sick. The stand has HuPlay lights mounted top and bottom, which would play off the wall and the bookshelves. This location has a lot more space than my house, so an added benefit in this configuration is access from the rear and the sides. It's critical for us to get the alignment with the floor, so we measured everything out and everything was aligned perfectly. With the screens, even the most perfect gap could allow for a sliver of light from behind, so the final plan was to run a piece of black tape precisely down the joints at the rear of the screen. With that in place, it's now late afternoon, and shipping finally called to confirm that delivery would be the next day. A pretty upsetting setback, to be honest, and when this happens, it always makes us look like we have no control over the situation, but we really have absolutely no say on what the shipping company does or how much emphasis they put on our delivery. We learn each time we install, and we're going to simply adjust our schedule even more and add 4 extra days buffer on shipping. We continued to work to complete the PC, and near the end of the day, we consolidated a huge pile of boxes that had piled up. 7 p.m., done for the day, dinner, hotel, shower, bed, up for 6:45, on site before 8 a.m. Today would be all about the simulator, and we were hoping for an early morning delivery. The PC was initialized with a Steam account, and all the drivers were added, and benchmarks were performed. Each of the Sony OLED TVs were initialized using Radeon Adrenalin. We created a single array. With this, the 4th screen was plugged in to check its operation. Radeon cards actually have 4 ports that are usable at once, and this smaller screen to the left would allow Discord, YouTube, or whatever needs to be seen while playing. It was at that time where the simulator arrived in its wooden crate. The top of the crate was used to protect the floors in the house as parts were brought inside. As we went lower in the crate, we were able to take more of the interior shelves to be used to protect the floor. The base is made up of 3 large sections held together by 3 small sections. There are over 300 bolts that need to be tightened, torqued, and then checked. With that, the base was flipped over and ready to receive the actuators. Actuator 1 and 2 are on control box 1, 3 and 4 are on control box 2, and 5 and 6 are on control box 3. They attached in order and are held down with bolts. It was now approaching the end of the day, so rather than risking a mishap, we actually stopped there. Dinner, hotel, shower, bed, back up for 6:45 breakfast and back on site before 8. This is day 4 of 5, and we immediately set to work to attach the top sled. This is held in place with 24 bolts, and despite sounding very simple, a lot can go wrong, so we took our time and talked through the process as we're doing it. This is why having Kyle on site is great, because we've done it before together and we communicate really well. Because the actuators are internally sprung, it's normal for them to be seen out of alignment until the system is finally powered up and is returned to its original park state. Next, Kyle would be able to do the install for the Sparco R100, and that chewed up a further hour, and I would install the wiring, the running gear such as the wheelbase and the pedals. It was a bit of a rat's nest below because it's for nothing to do all the cable management before ensuring that the system works. It was getting quite late on day 4, but Kyle and I wanted to get Jay set up with a working simulator so that he could do as many laps as he wanted that evening. So a quick tune and profile for Automobilista 2, bindings, basic FOV, and the wires were tied away so that nothing would become pinched. We mounted his soundbar and connected his subwoofer, and then late on day 4, we asked Jay to take the seat of his simulator for the first time. We talked him through the menus on how to choose car and track. We showed him how to start a free play session, and he was driving. It's normal to need to acclimatize to simulation. It takes time to get good, and it was our hope that Jay would be able to put several hours of laps to get used to the system. We were running quite late to meet some friends for dinner, and Jay said the most unexpected and genuinely fantastic thing he could say to Kyle. He said, "You want to take the Beamer?" Definitely an upgrade over our Toyota. Jay loves cars and has a nice collection of them, but to offer for us to take one of them and for it to be a supercar in sheep's clothing for the night was absolutely massive. Not only was it a fantastic way to end the day and start day 5, but in a way it also reinforced to Kyle and I that he is now sure that we should be able to deliver what we discussed. It was late and it was dark. The tech in this car is crazy and it's packed with luxury. It's a big GT car coupled with lots of power. The experience of driving it is really quite something. The Mode 2 hotkey is right there on the steering wheel, and pushing that would set everything to the driver's preferences, in this case, maximum engine map, sharper inputs on all controls, relaxed stability management, and no traction control. I needed to try it once, right?
Mode's a little different.
That works.
Jesus Christ.
That gets the job done, people. A 10 to 60 mile roll up an on-ramp. Even though we were ready for it, it's always shocking, and this kind of thing results in your brain making you smile and giggle like a kid. Being the evening in November, the roads and tires were quite cold, so quickly back out of M mode, we arrived for dinner and spent the time with those friends that I'd known for years through starcitizen. Laminal and his spouse, Sven, who you would remember from the video Real Pilot Fake Plane, and Steen Rose and her husband, and you may know her as the artist who performed the cover a couple years back called Yella Yell. Gamers spend so much time becoming friends, good friends, and it would be absolutely impossible for Kyle and I to be here without meeting up. We were only comfortable to do this once the majority of the job was done, and you are mostly sure that no more big blockers exist. Back to the hotel after a great dinner, we chose a safe spot to park the M8 below a street lamp, shower bed, back up for breakfast, and we hit the road on site early, but in style this time. This is always the longest day and obviously the most important day. This is handover. This day, you can get distracted and lose hours and hours here and there. The system needs to switch between driving and flight with all the controls. The system needs to switch between triple screen and VR. Kyle fabricated an ingenious set of mounts for each VR base station, which also totally cleans up all of the wiring. A solid win, and all points go to Kyle. Each side of the TV mount has an industrial power bar mounted behind, which not only adds a nice power switch for vacations, but it also completely sorts out many cable management issues when adding and subtracting components. With the PC on its shelf and the wires color-coded, it would be easy for Jay to switch between VR and the triple screens. Day 5, we needed to get through a lot. Flight controls for helicopter, jet, and other jets, how to tune the platform movement, how to tune settings and bindings, how to calibrate the gimbals, how to update profiles on the Virpil CM3. We knew that this would push well beyond midnight, so Jay offered to get what would become the best and most perfect takeout we ever had. He said that he wanted to treat us for dinner that night, which is exactly what we also wanted to do, but to leave for dinner on the last night would further halt process, so with as much respect as possible, I asked Jay if it'd be possible to somehow make that dinner into takeout and eat at his house. My God. When he returned 45 minutes later, we sat down for the best steak, potatoes, and Brussels sprouts. Food like you might get from a Michelin star restaurant, but it was somehow nicer and more fitting to share dinner with Jay in his dining room rather than at a restaurant. We had some time then to talk about the build, specifically what we still needed to achieve, and some things that were simply going to be unattainable for that night. As we got closer to 1 a.m., an effort was made to begin to clean up and to wrap up. Boxes were stacked in the garage, manuals and paperwork were consolidated into the build folio. The system got a final wipe down, and then we performed final checks. There's never enough time at the end of a job like this, and it always becomes time crunch. In the almost 2 weeks since leaving, Jay's kept in touch with questions, and as each is answered and solved, he is now closer and closer to being an expert with his new hardware. Part of ongoing care is the two-way communication, and it's normal for the first month for it to be intense, but it usually tapers off. With that, we said goodbye. Kyle and I arrived late to the hotel. We had a flight at noon to return home, and we agreed to meet in the lobby at 10 a.m. in the morning, a short drive to the airport to return the rental, and all of our flights lined up perfect, with us arriving in Ottawa at 8 p.m. that night. So that's it, another on-site install with a completely unique set of goals and challenges. I like to document our trips mainly to entertain, but also as a record for the customer and possibly future customers, so they can see what the process is all about. So if this system is the kind of thing that you wish to have in your life and you don't feel comfortable doing it yourself, by all means contact us. We're prepared to manage the project from start to finish anywhere on the globe. Thank you very much for spending your time with me. And of course, thank you to you, Jay, and your family for your hospitality, allowing us to spend a week in your house for your install. Always a unique set of challenges and always exciting to meet new people. Be good to each other, sim safe, and look out for more videos in this series.
Excellent. Exactly how I would like to drive to a job site. Cars, mint. We're really lucky though, because we have this, like, what? Come on, people. This is not that hard. What I was saying before I was rudely interrupted by Red Truck Man is this is the second time that Kyle and I have gone on a job, and I hope I don't want to get used to this being the standard. Oh, there we go. That's the ticket. Literally.
Sweet Jesus.
It's just Kyle making it difficult to vlog. Now I can't remember what I was thinking, but I do remember I used to do that to people in the protege. They'd be talking about whatever's going on in their head, and I would just hit the gas, like drop 2 gears and hit the gas and be like, what was I saying? So yeah, payback's a bitch. But anyways, as I was saying, we've been super lucky. We've had the greatest experience twice now so far. Obviously, you know, you come to a place and you work and you do the thing, what you're supposed to do. But it's really nice when people appreciate, they realize what you're doing. And most of all, we found out last night that the client spent a lot of time testing the system. We worked really hard to get it functional so that, like, during the evening he could use it. Of course, that paid off. So yeah, it's win-win. Everyone just feels good.